A drawer can look perfect right after you reorganize it. Everything is lined up, sorted, and incredibly neat. But just a few days later, it is messy again. And the interesting part is that you did not make it messy on purpose. You were simply using it. You take one thing out. You have to lift something else first. You are in a hurry, so you set that other item off to the side. When you try to put it back, its original spot is blocked, so it ends up sitting somewhere else temporarily. There is one kind of organizing system I trust less and less. The kind that looks perfect right after you finish, but only stays that way if everyone follows every step exactly. A good system should keep working when you are cooking, rushing out the door, putting something away with one hand, or simply too tired to do everything perfectly. And that is the common idea behind the 11 rules we are going through today. Clutter usually appears wherever your storage system forces you to stop and move something, remember something, or make a decision. I am using the phrase Japanese-inspired here in a very practical sense, prioritizing visibility, clear return paths, and enough open space for a room to keep functioning. I am not suggesting that every home in Japan is organized the same way. These principles can be especially useful in many American homes, where storage can be spacious and flexible. But that flexibility can also make it easy to stack things too deep, fill every available inch, or create too many possible homes for the same category of items. The problem is not always that you own too much. Sometimes, the way your belongings are stored is creating one extra little step between finished using it and put it away. And when that little extra step happens often enough, your home starts looking cluttered even though you clean it regularly. Rule number 1. An item you use often should not require you to move another item before you can reach it. Think about a kitchen cabinet. You want the pan on the bottom, but there are 2 other pans sitting on top of it. You lift those out, grab the one you need, and set the other 2 on the countertop. At this point, you have not created a huge mess. You have simply created 2 temporary items with nowhere to go. But that is exactly how clutter often begins. One tiny action turns into an extra decision. Put them back right now, or leave them there because you are still cooking. When you are making dinner, that decision can easily lose to something more important. One useful principle in Japanese-inspired organizing is to reduce the number of things you have to touch before reaching the item you actually need. Not because it makes the cabinet look prettier, because using the cabinet should not create more work. If you want to quickly test an area in your home, do not just ask whether it looks neat. Ask yourself, how many other things do I have to move before I can get this one? If the answer is regularly more than 0, that space is functioning more like a puzzle than storage. And if one area immediately came to mind, leave one word in the comments: kitchen, closet, or bathroom. Which area in your home becomes messy again the fastest after you clean it? Rule number 2. Things you use frequently should be stored shallow enough that you can see and reach them without digging through another layer. That does not mean everything has to stand upright. And it does not mean you need to buy more organizers. The more important idea is what I would call usable depth. A shelf can be physically very deep, but if you can only reach the back by pulling everything in front of it out first, that deeper section is not really functioning as convenient storage. Imagine the cabinet under a bathroom vanity. At the front are the products you use every day. Behind them are a few backup bottles, an old toiletry bag, and several things you have almost forgotten about. Every time you need something from the back, you first pull out the items in front, and very often, those items do not immediately return to their original places. That is why a space can technically hold a lot and still be difficult to maintain. Storage capacity and usable storage are not always the same thing. If you can only remove one item by disrupting everything else, your home is trading convenience for capacity. Rule number 3, organize around the way your hands actually move, not around what looks best in a photograph. A box with a lid can look very clean, but if every time you need something inside, you have to pull the box out, open the lid, take out the item, close the lid, and push the box back, one tiny action has turned into an entire sequence. When you have plenty of time, that may not feel important. But when you are making breakfast, your phone is ringing, and someone is calling you from another room, that extra sequence becomes a very tempting invitation to say, I will just leave this here for now. Every unnecessary step becomes an optional step when we are tired. So pay attention to how your hands actually move. Do you have to open a lid that does not really need to be there? Do you have to pull out an entire bin just to get one small item? Is something you use every day sitting behind something you only use once a month? Often, the solution is very small. Remove the lid from a box. Switch the positions of two items, or move the everyday item out from behind the things you rarely use. If you like looking at your home this way, not just making it look tidier, but making it easier to use every day, you can subscribe to The Quiet Home. This is where we focus on small systems that help your home create less work for you. Rule number 4, protect at least one area of usable surface space. Not every countertop has to be empty. Not every object has to disappear inside a cabinet, but a surface you use regularly needs enough open space to do the job it was designed to do. Imagine you have just brought groceries into the kitchen. The bags are in your hands. You need somewhere to set them down. The countertop might still look fairly tidy, but if the coffee maker, toaster, a basket, and a few temporary items already take up most of the space, the counter has lost one of its most important functions, giving you room for whatever happens next. One grocery bag goes onto the dining table. One box goes onto a chair, something you have not put away yet sits beside the sink. Clutter begins to spread because the home does not have enough working space. Empty space is not unused storage that you have failed to maximize. In many cases, empty space is exactly what allows the storage around it to function. You do not need to clear the entire kitchen countertop. Just choose one small zone, the place where you usually prepare food, set down groceries, or handle an everyday task, and protect it from becoming a permanent part for random things. The first 4 rules are all about what your hands are being asked to do. Lift, pull, open, move, and find a temporary place for something. But some systems make a home difficult to maintain without requiring you to touch anything at all. They require you to remember. Rule number 5. One category of items should have one clear return point, not 3 or 4 places that are all considered acceptable. This kind of problem is easy to overlook because each individual location can seem perfectly reasonable. Batteries could go in a kitchen drawer, or in the hallway cabinet, or in a box with electronics. None of those locations is unreasonable. But because none of them is clearly more correct than the others, every time you put batteries away, you have to make the decision all over again. Today, you put them in the drawer. Next week, someone else puts them in the cabinet. A month later, you are no longer sure where the old package is. The same thing happens with over-the-counter medicine, extra towels, craft supplies, small tools, or pet supplies. If something has 3 places where it could belong, the closest one will usually win when you are in a hurry. Then the next time you need it, you have to search all 3. An item with too many homes eventually feels like an item with no home at all. Choose just one category that you regularly search for in multiple places. Give it one return point. The other locations are no longer backup options. They are simply not where that item goes anymore. Rule number 6. Your storage should tell you what is inside without forcing you to remember. There is a big difference between a home that looks neat and a home that is easy to read. A pantry can have rows of identical containers lined up beautifully. But if you have to open each container to figure out what is inside or what is running low, that neat appearance is shifting work away from your eyes and onto your memory. The same thing happens in the freezer. A bag pushed into the back does not just disappear from sight. It becomes something you have to remember that you own. And in a household where several people shop, cook, and put food away, memory is not a good inventory system. The solution does not necessarily mean transferring everything into transparent containers. Sometimes the original packaging is easier to read. Sometimes all you need to do is turn the label toward the front. Sometimes one bin should hold one clearly defined category instead of 6 unrelated things that happen to fit. The useful question is, can I tell what I have just by looking? If you have to open something, pull something out, or rely on memory to answer that question, your storage is asking your brain to do a job the storage system itself should be doing. Rule number 7. Someone who did not organize the house should still be able to understand the system. This is where organizing shifts from being a problem about objects to being a problem about people. In many households, one person knows where almost everything is. Extra towels? Ask that person. Tape? Ask that person. Resealable zags? Ask that person. Glass cleaner? Still the same person. From the outside, the home may look very organized. But if the system exists only inside one person's head, that person never really gets a break from managing the household. And everyone else has a harder time putting things back correctly because the correct place is not obvious to them. A shared system should be simple enough that someone who was not involved in organizing it can look at it and understand where this item belongs and where that item should go back. If every question that starts with "where is this?" has to go through the same person, the system is assigning the job of remembering to that person instead of doing the job itself. If there is one area in your home where everyone always asks the same person, "Where is this?" leave the name of that area in the comments. I think those are often some of the best places to fix first. Rule number 8. Put the return point where the task actually ends. We often choose storage locations based on the room an item supposedly belongs in. But a more useful approach is to look at where the item usually ends up after you finish using it. Think about kitchen towels. If you usually finish using a towel at one end of the kitchen, but the laundry basket is at the other end, dealing with that towel requires a separate trip every single time. That sounds like a very small inconvenience. And because it feels so small, we usually do not fix it. We just leave the towel beside the sink. We tell ourselves we will move it later. Then, later, runs into something else that needs our attention. The towel stays there. The same thing happens with items you regularly use on the couch. If remote controls, reading glasses, or other things you use in that area always end up in one place, but their official storage location is across the room, the nearest flat surface will slowly become their real storage location. An item is easiest to put away when its return point is already along the path it naturally travels. If you constantly have to remind yourself, next time, put it away immediately, it may be more useful to reconsider how far that item has to travel instead of continuing to depend on the reminder. At this point, we have covered 2 kinds of friction. In the first section, the home asks your hands to do too much. Lift, pull, open, and move. In this section, it asks your brain to do too much. Remember, search, choose, and give directions to everyone else. But there is still another kind of system that can look completely reasonable and still fail. You might be able to see everything. Every item might have exactly one place. The return path might even be very short, and your home can still start overflowing onto countertops, tables, and chairs. The reason is something we often treat as a sign of good organization. Every available space has been filled. Rule number 9. Do not organize a storage space to 100% of its capacity. That can sound a little backward. If a shelf still has empty space, our natural reaction is to think we have not fully used it. If a drawer can still close, we assume we can fit a few more things inside. But there is a difference between space that holds your belongings and space you need in order to use those belongings. Imagine a closet where every hanger is pressed tightly against the next one. Technically, all the clothes fit. But to pull out one shirt, you have to push the surrounding clothes to both sides. To put the shirt back, you have to create that space all over again. Or imagine a pantry shelf packed just tightly enough for packages to fill the entire space from one end to the other. It looks extremely efficient until new groceries arrive. A bag of pasta needs a place to go. There is no room, so it stays on the countertop. Then a box of cereal sits next to it. A few days later, you look around the kitchen and wonder why everything keeps ending up outside the pantry. But the problem did not begin on the countertop. It began inside a pantry that had been organized so tightly that it could no longer absorb any change. This is one of the most important mindset shifts in this video. A system does not just need room for what you own right now. It needs room for use, movement, and change. That empty space is not wasted. It is part of how the system works. A home is never static. Groceries come in, laundry comes back, and temporary items appear. Storage needs enough breathing room to absorb those small changes. If your system only works when everything is in a perfect state, it does not have enough breathing room for real life. Full storage does not keep clutter contained forever. Eventually, it pushes clutter out into the places you can see. Rule number 10. The size of a storage zone should match the actual size of the category it holds. A space that is too small creates overflow, but a space that is too large can create clutter in a different way. A large basket assigned to a small category rarely stays partly empty for long. A few unrelated items start making their way inside. Then the boundary of that category disappears. Eventually, you are digging through a mixed pile just to find the original item. This is why dividers, smaller bins, or simply assigning a narrower section can sometimes be useful. Not because more organizers are always better, but because clear boundaries reduce the number of decisions that can happen inside a space. If you dedicate an entire large drawer to a group of items that only needs a small portion of it, the leftover space can easily become a landing place for things that do not have a clear decision attached to them yet. And once categories start mixing together, you are back to the original problem. Move. Remember, decide. So instead of asking, how can I fit this category into the drawer I already have? Try asking, how much space does this category actually need? Sometimes the answer is much less than you expected. The remaining space can be clearly assigned to another category, or it can simply stay empty. Rule number 11. Measure the problem before you buy an organizer. This may be the easiest rule to overlook because buying a new bin gives you the feeling that you have already started solving the problem. You look at a messy shelf. You buy a few baskets. Everything goes inside them. The cabinet door closes, and for a few days, it feels great. But a new bin does not fix everyday items sitting behind things you rarely use. A divider does not create more room inside an overfilled drawer. And adding more containers does not help if nobody in the house knows where an item is supposed to go back. Storage can easily become a cover for a decision you have not actually finished making. A new organizer can hide a difficult system without fixing it. Before you buy anything, think about measuring in a broader sense. Not just width and depth, measure behavior. How often do you use that item? What do you have to move before you can reach it? Can you see it? Do you immediately know where it goes back? Is there enough room to return it without squeezing things in or rearranging the entire area? Very often, the answers will point toward a much smaller change than buying more storage. Remove one layer. Separate two categories. Move a frequently used item. Leave enough open space so something can be taken out and returned without rebuilding the entire area. Or simply remove a container that is no longer helping. And this is where all 11 rules come back together. A home that is easy to maintain is not necessarily a home with more storage. It is a home where the storage system asks you fewer questions. It does not make you move 3 things to reach one. It does not make you remember what is hidden in the back. It does not make you decide all over again where something should go. It does not make you rearrange an entire shelf every time real life brings something new into the house. If you want to try this tonight, do not start with the entire house. Choose exactly one place that regularly becomes messy again. Open it and notice the first moment that creates friction. Do you have to move something else? Do you have to remember where something is? Or do you have to decide all over again where something should go back? Then fix only that one point of friction. If you have to move something, make the frequently used item easier to reach directly. If you have to remember, make the information easier to see or simplify the category. If you have to decide, choose one clear return point and eliminate the other places that are merely acceptable. Then stop. Do not turn tonight into a whole house reorganization project. This week, you only need to do 3 small things. Choose one area that regularly becomes messy again. Remove one step that makes putting things away harder. And once everything fits, keep enough empty space for the system to remain easy to use instead of filling every inch just because space is still available. A little empty space today may be exactly what keeps an item off the countertop next week. I think that is the biggest difference between a home that simply looks organized and a home that is genuinely easy to live in. One requires you to constantly maintain the appearance of order. The other makes the easiest action very close to the correct action. And when that happens in enough places, you no longer have to fight the same battle with clutter every weekend. You simply have fewer moments when clutter gets a chance to begin. If that is the kind of system you want for your home, subscribe to the Quiet Home. And in the next video, we are going to take a closer look at a closely related problem. Why buying more storage and organizers can sometimes make a home harder to keep tidy instead of easier.